Today, ScorchedToys@anymoon.com is diving deep on the new KitzConcept 172 scale Battlepod figures. If you're saying, what's a Battlepod? You might be familiar with it as a Regolt from Macross, and it's probably pronounced differently than that, and just, you know, look it up separately and don't trust me on Japanese pronunciation of Zentradi words, because I'm no expert, people. I am super excited to jump into this new mold, but first we have to clear up some confusion. This toy does not include a Glicke pilot figure. Many of you purchasing this toy, like myself, pre-ordered it with a pilot figure and received one sans pilot figure. It's a little French for you. We can only assume at this point that KitzConcept is going to sell it as a sold separately accessory for people that bought it after the pre-order window, and those of us who bought it in the pre-order window will receive it for free, gratis, if you will. But we'll have to see. Time will tell. So let's just jump into this assuming that we're getting what most people would be getting, and that's just a Battlepod, and that's fine. It's cool. Given the size of the toy, the box is impressively compact and consists of a sleeve over a frill-free generic KitzConcept 172 collectible box. The box is fine. Inside is a plastic tray that houses the body of the toy with a second tray taped behind that contains the head lasers, and there's also instructions behind everything. My plastic tray was shattered, but it still secures the toy well enough. If you want to use the light up effects, you're going to need to purchase 12 LR626 batteries separately. Given all the regulations around shipping batteries and the fact a lot of folks will never use the light up effects, I don't really mind KC letting me decide if I want to pay for those batteries or not. We're all going to begin by installing our head lasers, and I did want to take a moment to point out that these are articulated head lasers, which are pretty cool, and they have a peg on either side, so when they go on the toy, they're not going to spin around like you might remember being a problem on the High Metal R toy. Now, if you are someone who's going to use the light up effects, you'll need those LR626 batteries. I got these little 3-pack ones to make my life a little bit easier. Flat side goes up against the spring, and then we just push it in like so. And then you can see there's a little switch up here. If I go over to 1, we get a rapid laser fire going on. If I go 2, that becomes a solid laser, and inside the lights are now on. There is a little back door that we can open up like so. You're not really going to get too much of that lighting effect because I have bright camera lights on, but you might see my finger getting purple there. And we'll check that out with the lights off in just a moment. To plug in these lasers, they really do just plug right in and you're good to go. Now we're going to put the batteries in the side booster. To do that, I'm just going to pull away from the body and then wiggle jiggle lift up. And then I'll take my batteries, again, flat side against the spring, press it in like so. Here's the switch, it's up in the front here. Put that on and you'll see purple coming out. We can put this back in, peg first, apply pressure down, and then repeat on that other side. Now we need to open the cockpit, and what we're gonna do there is just hold the bottom and the top and kind of pull up and away. You can see that opens up that area. We wanna pull that forward as we lift this up and back, and then we're going to access this panel here to get to the battery compartment. The front of the cockpit looks like this. We're going to put a fingernail in and pop out. Get out of there. Come on. Ugh, that one's a little tough. Pop off that piece here, take our batteries, put them in like so. Replace that panel, and hopefully it goes on a little smoother than it came off. There it goes. And then you can see we have a switch right here, which we can flip that way. Pretty obviously that light is on. And if we look at the front, this light is now also on. I have got the cockpit kind of open right now, so you can kind of get that feeling for what it would look like inside there, which I think is pretty freaking cool. If we open it up, it doesn't really make it much better, but there you go. Now you got purple right in your eyes. If we spin this thing around, again, we have this door here, which opens, and again, gives you another angle for what it looks like inside there. All up in the club. We got this nice pulsing effect going on, which I dig. And then let's go ahead and we'll bring this up. We'll give you the effect of what it looks like without the cockpit open there. And there's that nice light up visor. And again, we got the lasers that could be shooting. So there you go, guys. That's the light up effect. Oh, let's close that door so we don't illuminate the back too. And I think it's pretty cool. My only complaint here is that those switches are pretty difficult to get to. So you can't just be like walking by and be like, oh, you know, I'm gonna flick that on. You got to pop off some panels. But otherwise, it's a fun effect. I feel like it'd be cool if we had an option to buy one without all the fun effects for cheaper. But I don't know. I'm an army builder. That's just one of my thoughts. Let me know in the comments if you agree. But is it fun to play with? Well, from an articulation standpoint, these guns come fairly close to straightforward, but not quite dead on, and you certainly can't track something beyond the center point. But it's a decent range of motion. Certainly enough for you to get some good poses in your display stand. These boosters completely spin around and you can see they're ratcheted joints, so they're going to stay in whatever position. And really what it is that makes it a lot easier to get them perfectly symmetrical on either side. You won't be getting much fun out of your whisker lasers. They don't really do anything, but we do have a waist behind. So a nice little swivel there. It's very similar to the swivel on Bandai's High Metal R. Now, if you have an old Revoltech toy, these have the ability to swivel all the way around. And I will say it's pretty amazing how much more fun factor having a huge range of motion is. So this is a little limited, but it's just enough for you to be able to get those poses where it's walking one way and kind of looking off to the side. But yeah, I would have loved to be able to do a little bit more than that. Now going to the back of the toy, we're going to take a look at the hips and listen to these joints. Very thick ratchets that are so strong the toy can hold up that leg based on the strength of the ratchet, and you can see a good range of motion backward and forward. And again, that is being held up just by the ratchet. So very impressive strength there, because these feet are incredibly heavy. This toy's got some bulk to it. Now at the hips, we also have the ability to extend and then get a very wide stance, which is very impressive. Once you have it extended and into the wide position, you can also push it back forward to get a little bit more natural look. And then as we move down the leg, there's a twist point here, which allows us to get an even wider looking stance. So you can get really aggressive poses with these toys. If you have a Bandai High Metal R toy, you're going to remember these knee joints, which aren't the most attractive element of that toy. Big metal stripe right down the front. Nice to see that it is metal, but it's kind of an awkward looking joint. Now on the KitzConcept toy, it's a very attractive joint and it conceals a lot of functionality. So we have this extension here and a lower extension. And together, they both have a pivot that lets this leg get into a crazy dynamic position, which will allow us to get this thing into those deep crouches without the joint being marred by its ability to flex so far. And of course, we've got some articulation in the foot. If we're gonna have angled out legs, we're gonna need that heel to be able to angle also, so it can be flat on the ground. And here you go, we got a little back and forth like so. Also a little ability to twist that foot entirely, and the foot can move down like so. We also have an individually articulated toe and an individually articulated heel. So we could do something like this, which would work for like a flying pose. One of the few criticisms I would levy at this toy is that it doesn't seem to be made with the idea of a display stand in mind at all. Now, I've got a flying pose going on right now, and I've done it by including the tips of the router and the foot housing.
and then just putting the top rod in behind the head. And this works out fine. I could definitely have a few of these display stands doing this flying pose. But if you wanted to have something where you had the Battlepod's legs flared while it's taking on a VF1 toy, where only one leg is on the ground or neither leg is on the ground, there's no attachment points to facilitate that. So no idea about a future display stand or how a future display stand could even do that. So I think that is going to be something where we're all on our own trying to balance these very heavy toys on router style display stands. Here we have the toy in that full deep squat. And you can see very impressive with the cockpit open. And here you can see all that detail of the cockpit in full light. Very nicely done. This is the old Matchbox figure of the full-size Zentradi Warrior, and there is no way that this guy could ever fit inside this Battlepod. So just to be clear, not just because of the lack of articulation, but size-wise, he is much too big. What we can do is take our micronized Zentradi Warrior, and I know you guys all have one of these, come on. And we're gonna go ahead and we can put him inside here. We could bring his feet down approximately where they go, and it would not be the easiest fit, and I'm not gonna mess with it on camera. Believe me, I've done it before. You can squeeze him in there. He's gonna work, and then we can close up our cockpit. And this is what the toy looks like in its most compact version. From the front, it almost looks like an SD Regolt. It's pretty cute. But just the fact it can get down this low and have pilots going in and out is impressive. And again, we have that back trap door. Would be kind of hard to imagine putting a pilot figure in this way. So even though maybe it's not canonical that that front opens up, it certainly makes sense for a toy where pilot figures are involved.
Enemy mecha are generally an accessory for protagonist mecha, so you're probably wondering how well will this toy pair with the rest of your collection. I think you're gonna love it. That said, the Battlepod frequently looks huge in the animation. This might be why the official Robotech height of 17.4 meters is more than 2 meters taller than the official Macross height of 15.12 meters. If you go with the official measurements, KitzConcept picked the perfect size. It's 1/60 scale for Macross and basically 1/72 scale for Robotech. Here's how it's going to look squaring off against several of the more popular VF1 toys, probably in your cabinets. Don't just look at the sizes though, check out the weight. This toy brings serious heft. If the combination of the Battlepod toy and your Batroid mode VF1 rubs you the wrong way for some reason, the toy also looks great squaring off against fighter mode toys. Obviously, it's not going to work with the 1/48 scale DX, but I felt all the other toys paired very nicely. I'd say the High Metal R looks a little bit small, but again, there are some scenes in the show where the Battlepod is huge, so that would be just right.
With all that weight, it's pretty reasonable to wonder if this toy is gonna get loose eventually, and as of right now, I can't tell you, the toy's brand new. But what I can tell you is that out of the box, these joints are super stiff and it has been a joy to handle. You already saw that those hips are very ratcheted, but those knee joints, that's where you're gonna have to worry, I would think, in the long term. But for now, the fact that I can do this and that leg isn't just swinging right back down is a huge plus. And of course, what Battlepod toy would be complete without the inclusion of the removable armor piece on the front of the leg that shows the piston detail within? Okay, that's just gratuitous, but you know what? It's cool. Looks wise, this toy has a ton of paint applications. We have the red accent here that wasn't on the High Metal R. We have the blue accents on the back, those emblems there. The hip, we have this writing that's not on the High Metal R. We have the markings on the boosters. We have the markings on the sides. We have the marking on top. The red dots where you want them. There's even some detail marking on the mold, spinning the toy around, a lot more detail on the back of the toy. If we compare this thing to the line art, there's not a lot to complain about. Both the High Metal R and this KitzConcept toy have a larger eye sensor than they should. It protrudes out further. The KitzConcept has some pretty big feet, but again, it's a heavy toy. It creates a solid platform. I think that's a pretty minor sin, and I really like the look of this toy.
You may have purchased the KitzConcept 172 scale VF1 and been unimpressed for some reason, but don't let that be the reason you don't purchase this Battlepod. It's a totally different beast, and I highly recommend it for anyone looking to add some pop to their cabinets. Did you enjoy this video? Did you learn something new? If so, do me a solid and hit that thumbs up button. If I missed something, you got a complaint, or, hey, I also accept compliments, leave a comment. I love those. And if you are a fan of mecha anime, subscribe so you know when more of these are available. Thanks everybody for watching.